Demonising deer. In an exclusive report, we reveal how environmentalists are using the climate emergency stick to beat Scottish deer stalking and management into the carbon sequestering soil. Plus, we unearth example after example of just why the state should be kept well clear of deer.
These deer are being funnelled onto the main road and onto the railway. It's incredible.
Two similar shots, two very different reactions. Roy assesses how fight or flight changes how deer behave. We've got news, we've got hunting YouTube, and we've got a plea to you, please, to fill out the hunting consultation on the DEFRA boring old website. Welcome to Fieldsports Britain. What do you see? Iconic symbol of the Highlands? Photographic opportunity? Food? Conflict? Pest? Well, for the moment, what you think doesn't matter, because a well-meaning group of environmentalists have decided for you. Called the Deer Working Group, the Scottish Government appointed them to advise on the future of deer in Scotland. They have just made a bundle of recommendations to the government about all wild deer and non-wild deer management and its future in Scotland. And most of it pushes for greater state control because, they say, of the C word, climate. Here are a couple of those recommendations to be getting along with. No closed season for any male deer. That's right, open season on stags and bucks. Then there's a reduced closed season on female deer, and a drive to eradicate all fallow and seeker deer. And this is all backed up by millions of pounds worth of government contracts to shoot deer. As that sinks in, let's look at a few reasons why the state swapping its regulatory power for hands-on management is a really bad idea. We'll start with fences. Three-sided fences. This one is protecting the precious and four-sided SSI Soonart oak wood. Deer manager Niall Rowantree follows the fence line from the cattle grid to the loch edge, where it stops at the waterline. Imagine if deer were strong swimmers. Oh.
On one side of this fence is a differing land use objective to that side. From this point where this fence goes into the sea, there's a 7-mile hole open to deer range on the other side of the water. There's none to stop a stag walking down there, popping into the water for 2 feet and popping back up here and going from cherished asset to pest in less than a metre.
Willow.
Further along the road we meet ecologist Dr. Cathy Main. She used to work for Scottish Natural Heritage, and she knows the pressures the department is under. As with so many government agencies, they can't spend as much time in the field as they should. They do what they do by remote control, and that means things slip through the net. This area is currently classified as heavily browsed. What does Cathy think?
Immediately, we've got quite a big understory, there's a thicket of vegetation, it's difficult to walk through. Particularly, we've got lots of brambles, so there's brambles through all of this area here, which are very, very palatable to deer. So the presence of brambles and honeysuckle are two of the kind of key things that tell us that there are not a high population of deer in this area.
So to be blunt, have they got it wrong?
Right here, it's not heavily, there is not heavy browsing by deer. Yeah, bluntly, that's not true. And I don't see the crop damaged heavily either. The crop is doing well. There are occasional bits of damage, but it's not heavy.
Okay, so is the system fit for purpose, Cathy?
I think it's a little bit like trying to do heart surgery with a spoon.
This is why the people on the ground, working the ground, should be trusted to make the management decisions. Because right now, deer are being lamped here to lower the deer browsing pressure, even though the ecologist says there's no issue.
Last year I was coming back up the road here with school kids in the car. Here at the side of the road is government staff shooting deer in spotlights. Now, the guy that's the local manager for the area, I know him very well, he's a competent guy, and he's constricted by his business targets as to how he manages this issue. And I think there's an opportunity here to revisit this model and actually bring these things back to the communities.
The Scottish Government spends around £10 million a year employing contract shooters to kill deer on the public estate. The total cost, including management and infrastructure, is a lot higher. With the current proposals, this cost can only escalate. Surely that money can be better spent on healthcare or policing, with recreational hunters taking on the deer management burden, adding money to the coffers, not removing it.
The model that we seem to be being pushed towards sees deer as a pest, as vermin, to be exterminated rather than allowed to flourish in a kind of very managed way at a cost.
Yep.
And to my mind, it is unintelligent to not make the most out of that resource, and doubly so when the cost goes back to the taxpayer.
Back to the report and a few more of those recommendations. An immediate ban on lead ammunition for deer in Scotland. Reduction of deer to 10 per square kilometre, blanket across Scotland. Plus, you will not be able to shoot any deer at any time or anywhere without a licence from SNH, which you will have to pay for. Another section of the report deals with public safety, specifically road traffic accidents. But instead of trying to stop deer coming onto our carriageways, incredibly, the government is encouraging it. These cows are licking the salts that are mixed in with grit to make it stick to the road. Deer also crave this delicious cocktail. So, an effort to keep drivers safe in winter is encouraging deer into the path of traffic. And it gets worse. On one section of the A85 just north of the Greenwelly stop, the deer fence on both sides of the valley guides deer straight onto the road and the rail track.
You can see this is a deer fence. It's been here a while. There's a bit of moss growing on the post. I'm a stag inside this fence. I'm on the public estate. I'm coming onto a high-speed carriageway. I'm coming off the corner of the deer path, and suddenly I'm free and I'm back out into the wild again. So with that simple action, I've gone from being a cost to the taxpayer and an impact on the public woodland to back out on the open range. And more importantly, I've done it right in the middle of a high-speed carriageway, where if you look, the grass is mown and they're spraying salt on it. And there's signs in the road here saying, warning wild deer. Perhaps the sign should say, warning incompetent management.
The fences are not just funneling deer onto the roads and rails, they're trapping them.
So what we have, open range. We've got the Bredalbin Deer Management Group, the Blackmount Deer Management Group. We've got deer fences. Deer are coming into the low ground in the winter, funneled onto the main road and through the gaps in the fences. Then in the summer, they come against a fence line and can't return back to their range. Here they're an economic asset, here they're a cost to the taxpayer. And in the middle, in my opinion, is basic incompetent management.
What would it cost to just join the dots?
Probably significant. I mean, I couldn't give you a figure to build a...
Why did they start?
I think the initial idea has got to be to try and keep deer out of restocking woodland. As we look down the way, we can see a restock. So what they're trying to do is maintain deer at a lower density to get a commercial crop away. But to half do the job is to make the wildlife manager's job worse. Because what's happening now is there's a constant stream in and there's no flow back out. I've been along the whole of this new fence line. There's not a single deer jump on it. So the deer cannot get back out. Now in parts of the public estate, they're telling you now that they're doing deer management using contractors.
The contractors are paid on a headage basis. They need bodies on the ground. So it removes a selective element and it removes a continuous disturbance element of controlling deer on restocks. These guys, out of no harm of their own, will go after the numbers rather than the protection element. And the guys on the ground, the wildlife rangers, are becoming fewer in number, and the resources becoming thinner and thinner on the ground.
So the contractors are going for the low-hanging fruit. Why on earth would they bother scaring and doing all the other things to put them off when they don't get paid to do that? They just get paid to provide, to put meat in the chiller.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's a whole background to this. So they're doing population assessments in the woodlands, and then they're creating population models from their assessments in the woodlands of what they think is an enclosed population. But there's a whole element of ebb and flow here that they're not taking into account. And what it is doing outside the fence is people that have a commercial interest, that create local employment, that create hunting tourism opportunities, that bring spend to the local community, are being slowly hemorrhaged by events like this one next year. Marks of deer grazing, split stem,
We decide to take a look at the state of the young plantation along the A85. It's in poor condition.
The tragedy in all this is we've got a nation calling for more trees. We've got politicians talking about planting literally millions of trees. We're all questioning where these actual trees will come from, because we already know that this year the Forestry Commission are millions of trees short of their target. And then we're wondering that we have, you could say, high-level visions, but we're not actually capable at the moment of delivering on the ground. And we failed, I think. I mean, when I worked in this area, the Forestry Commission squad went to work in a minibus. Now they can go to work in a pickup truck. So there's been a general, again, disconnect from the local community. It's not creating employment, it's not delivering what it can on the ground commercially, and we're looking for wider, cheaper solutions when we should actually be focusing on things that bring a benefit to the local community and to the environment.
Our final example of where big ideas on grand scales lead to big mistakes takes us into a plantation near Fort William. We've been told about piles of abandoned deer fencing material worth thousands of pounds of taxpayers' money. It's been here for about 3 years and it's rotting.
So I've done a quick calculation on the phone here using current prices for that netting on eBay. That netting alone lying on the ground is £9,576 worth. That's before we look at deer posts, gates and strainers. Now, we were last on this site, there were deer gates just lying on top of this and they've disappeared. But we don't know, have they disappeared because they're being used somewhere on the public estate, or have they disappeared because they've gone somewhere else? But to my mind, just to reiterate it, I think this is unacceptable. That's taxpayers' money that's not being used wisely.
Even if the government's intention is to exchange deer fencing for deer shooting, this lack of competence and inability to manage the glaringly obvious leaves many of the remaining staff at Forestry and Land Scotland demoralised and disillusioned.
We as practical land managers, working with private individuals who have invested in their land, should be able to expect on the public estate that it's the same level playing field, that they're taking the same responsibility and they're careful about their costs and maximising their benefits. And draw your own conclusions.
What a waste. And it's not as if the fence that is in place is doing its job. Here are some shots of the holes. What's weird about all of this situation is there is no talk about the hulking great elephants in the room, the ones that are covered in wool and the ones that go moo. Why is no one pointing out the environmental and economic impact of millions of sheep and cattle? Or the invasive regen suppressing swathes of rhododendron? It's all about deer. Then there's the mountain hare. Mountain hares carry ticks and can be a vector for Lyme disease. In the report it says that if Lyme is detected in an area, deer should now be shot to prevent the spread. Mountain hares are getting more protection. Why? Well, talk to people in Scotland's Central Belt and you will find a distaste for trophy hunting. You will note a passion for land reform, and there is a climate emergency that may or may not be solved by planting hundreds of millions of trees with no fire breaks. All of this makes it increasingly likely that land uses that have gone on for centuries will be swept away by a well-meaning urban population who refuse to see any value in them. Once they're gone, it's unlikely we will ever restore what we may lose. If you are watching this and you are from the Scottish Government, at least try a pilot scheme to confirm the gains you hope to get, before you start forcing the losses. And remember, if you think you have a deer problem now, you wait until there's 10 million acres of new woodland for them to hide in. Thank you, Neil and Kathy, for explaining things from the other side of the fence. And if you want to have any kind of say in this process, there is a consultation on forestry going on in Scotland at the moment. It's going on until the 5th of February, and there's a link to that in the description below. And if you like Neil's films, you may remember a couple of years ago we made a series with him called A Year in the Life of Red Deer. Well, that whole film is now 80 minutes of gorgeous Highland deer stalking action, and it's available to download for a very small price on Vimeo. Follow the link in the corner of the screen or in the description below to take you there. Now, from forest growth to forest, well, Gump, really. It's David on the Fieldsports channel, News Stump.
This is Fieldsports Channel News. Packham is back. The BBC TV presenters group Wild Justice has launched a legal challenge against releasing game birds. It wants its lawyers to get pheasant and partridge shooting closed down before the release season begins in July. A SAB claiming to be a convicted murderer has assaulted 2 female hunt stewards. Hunting for Truth on Facebook and The Telegraph post this video from the Warwickshire hunt showing one of them backing away from the man.
I've just come out now for
Hey, get off my boob!
Oh, go in again!
Get off my boob! Do not! Get out! Get out!
West Midlands hunt saboteurs claim the man in the video was not one of their members. A hunt follower has allegedly found an extremist hunt saboteur planting a tracker under her horse trailer. Countryside groups are calling for tougher rules on the use of tracking devices after Mary Wynne Jones interrupted a SAB from the Cheshire Monitors trying to fix one to her Land Rover and trailer. She notified the police. Despite the SAB admitting she'd placed the tracker, North Wales Police couldn't do anything about it because no theft had been committed. Countryside Alliance Chief Executive Tim Bonner says he will contact Home Secretary Priti Patel about the legal loophole. Love Island's Ollie Williams plans to work at a hunting school in South Africa after his Villa exit. That's according to an interview he gave to the Field magazine last year. The revelations of his future plans comes at a time when he fiercely denies involvement with hunting for sport or hunting tourism in Africa. According to the article, he plans to work at a professional hunter school in the Northern Cape before heading to Mozambique to embark on a 2-year apprenticeship. The Cornish lad dropped out of the show after being slammed for hunting tourism when pictures of him posing with dead animals emerged. Following death threats from animal rights activists, his family home is now under police surveillance. A report on deer management says communities should be encouraged to go and hunt and kill wild deer for sport and food to aid conservation efforts. The report prepared for Scottish Environment Link, ScotLink, says this will reduce road accidents involving deer, cut tick numbers, improve herds' health and reduce the environmental damage caused by grazing. The Duchess of Rutland wants McDonald's to serve pheasant burgers as opposed to beef burgers. The comments come as Rutland County Council allowed the restaurant chain to open a 24-hour drive-through on the outskirts of Oakham. The Duchess of Rutland told Good Morning Britain that the fast food restaurant needs to sell locally sourced food like pheasant burgers and nuggets, saying, "If you bought a pheasant off me, it would cost you nothing. I would give it to you." Guns on Pegs reckons it can donate £20,000 to the Country Food Trust. The online shoot finding service has a new initiative to donate £1 for every inquiry made to shoots via Guns on Pegs in 2020. The aim is that CFT will provide an additional 10,000 meals through this campaign over the year. New self-appointed monitoring groups are being set up on Facebook in order to track controlled moorland burning and spread misinformation. The Yorkshire Dales and Nidderdale moorland monitors want people to report moorland fires to them. They claim the practice is ecologically damaging and bad for wildlife. Meanwhile, organisations such as the Grampian Moorland Group continue to counter the lies peddled by Packham and Avery by posting footage like this of planned moor burn, which helps to renew the nutritional value of heather while creating a natural fire break. As if Mark Avery didn't have his fingers in enough conservation pies, he's now becoming a Trust's new chairman. The charity claims it operates for the benefit of international conservation, saving land and saving species. He'll feel at home quickly among other patrons who include his old muckers, Wild Justice's co-director Chris Packham and TV presenter Steve Backshall. Mark Zuckerberg likes bow hunting hogs. The Facebook co-founder and chief executive says he enjoys bow hunting feral hogs as one of his resolutions for the new decade. He previously challenged himself to eat only the meat he killed, but has since moved away from that. More than 5,000 camels have been killed in a 5-day cull in Australia. Government shooters in helicopters took to the skies over parts of southern Australia to cull feral herds. The camels ravaged food and water reserves belonging to Aboriginal communities, damaging infrastructure and creating a hazard for drivers. Staying in Australia, and an illegal hunter in Tallarook State Forest shot a sleeping camper. Andrew Papanicolaou was asleep when the shot missed him. He was struck in the leg by a second. Poacher Joel Kipping mistook the reflective stripes on his sleeping bag for an animal. Realising his mistake, he fled but got bogged down and arrested. He's now starting an 18-month community corrections order and has been banned from owning a firearm for life. A bird of prey has chased more than 300 starlings to their death on a country lane. The birds discovered near Bodadern on Anglesey mystified investigators. They were found on a road and in a hedgerow, but none in nearby fields. Following a post-mortem examination, it's believed the birds were flying as part of a larger murmuration when they swooped to avoid a bird of prey but failed to pull up in time before hitting the ground. A sea eagle rewilded onto the Isle of Wight prefers inland Oxfordshire. The bird, known as G393, is now living near to the M40. It was released alongside 5 other birds onto the Isle of Wight this summer. A spokesman for Forestry England says the bird is mimicking the behaviour of red kites and is tucking into carrion in the region. Desperate farmers in Suffolk have had their vermin crisis solved once and for all. Pig farmers called in the Suffolk and Norfolk Rat Pack after vermin overran the farm and began nibbling at food stocks and posing a danger to livestock. The pack of terriers worked for 7 hours and collected 700 rats in a day, some weighing almost a kilogram. It's the biggest haul of vermin terminated by the group, which offer a free of charge pest service in the southeast. And it's all written up positively in the Daily Mail. Thanks to Steve Kearney for sending it in. Moorland keepers have stepped in when a dog went missing. Ralph the German Wirehead Pointer, Springer Spaniel Cross, disappeared on Swaledale in Yorkshire. Gamekeepers searched until dark, then one of them found him the following morning after hearing barking coming from a sinkhole. They lowered a keeper into the hole with ropes and pulled Ralph out. Meanwhile, the 2 female border terriers Ruby and Beetle, stolen from Teviot Smokery near Kelso in Scotland on the 29th of December, are still missing. There's a £20,000 reward for their return. The Duchess of Sussex's voiceover deal with Disney will benefit an anti-hunting wildlife charity. She wants all proceeds of her work to go to Botswana charity Elephants Without Borders, an NGO that works to end poaching in the country and conducts Botswana's only countrywide elephant census. Mike Chase, who runs it, has made a series of statements in the media condemning the reintroduction of hunting tourism to Botswana. And finally, just in time for Burns Night, get your hands on a vegan-friendly kilt. Designer Scott Wood found himself in a tizzy when he realised his newly found vegan beliefs didn't sit with a nice fur sporran, so he made a plant-based version and he's now selling them to order. You are now up to date with Fieldsports Channel News. Stuck in the stories, fishing for facts.
Thank you, David. And there is more news on our website. Click on the link in the description below to go and have a look at that. Now, you probably noticed that there is a lot of feeling against not just deer stalking but big game hunting in our news bulletin. There are a lot of headlines like this. Ow! I do that to highlight the fact that Boris Johnson, his girlfriend Carrie Symonds, and their buddy Zach, now Lord Goldsmith, are trying to drive through a ban on importing trophies to the UK from abroad. So if you go to Africa, you can't bring your antlers back. Well, that might not affect you, but the ban also includes exporting antlers from places like Scotland. Neil's business will be very badly affected. And if you have an interest in deer stalking, you can still fill out the consultation about that. It's on the DEFRA website and it closes this weekend. If you don't, we risk seriously harming deer stalking in this country, so please do it. Now, someone who truly believes in deer stalking and is putting a couple of fallow On the table, he hopes, it's Roy Lupton.
Morning.
Good morning. Good morning and welcome. Thank you for joining us on this beautiful, beautiful morning of gale force winds and rain. I had a phone call from David last night. Actually, I don't get phone calls anymore, it's just a message saying, should we go out tomorrow morning? I said, it's going to be very windy. And I said, okay. And he said, well, we'll still go, we'll be fine. I don't know, I mean, he's obviously quite bouncy. He's not seen me for a while, he's been away travelling the world.
Haven't seen you in ages. Happy New Year.
Yes, Happy New Year. Happy New Year.
Come on.
And then I got a phone call this morning. Luckily, he was stopping to get coffee, saying that it was my fault that the rain had accompanied the wind.
You said it's windy, not rainy.
Well, they normally do go together. You know, if you get high winds, there is a chance you're going to get quite heavy rain as well. And that's exactly what we've got. But we're now in between a shower, so we're going to quickly run off into the woods and see if we can find a deer that's not been drowned. So hopefully there will be something in there still walking around. Yeah, exactly. I'm sure we'll find a lot of Aladdin slippers this year. But no, we'll, as I say, we've got to go and find hopefully a doe or two. We need some for the table, so we shall head off into the woods and see what we can find. Now we've actually got a break in the rain. The deer have just started coming out of the woodland and just started to feed, so they're just coming out onto these fields in front of us here. So the only chance we've got, the wind's coming from the direction that I'd like to approach them, so that's out. So we've got a very, very strong wind cutting left to right. So the only bit of ground we can move into where they're not going to see us, we've just got a bit of dead ground here. If we can get over to that dead tree there and just crawl across, we might be able to just get a shot on them down there. So I think we shall get ready and see if we can sneak in.
What's your rifle of choice today?
Rifle today is we've got a nice Seiko with a laminated stock, which I do like. I think they are very, very pretty rifles. So this is a 2506 we're going to be using today, which again is a cracking little calibre. I've used them for many years, but no, they are absolutely superb.
The 2506, where did your sort of knowledge of that come from? You must have been introduced to it somehow, or?
A friend, I mean, I've always liked 3006s, and a friend of mine always used to use 2506, and he's used it. Well, actually, two very good friends of mine use 2506 and have used 2506 over the years. And you've got a nice bullet weight range for pretty much everything we've got over in this country. If you've got a long barrel, then obviously it makes the most of them, makes the most of the ballistics for some of the longer range shooting as well. So I think as a rifle there for this country, they're a very, very useful tool. But again, everybody's going down to the 6.5s these days, but I think the 2506s have still got their place. One on the right. If that other one, the clear one, turns slightly broadside, I'll take her as well. Yeah. You wanna? Yeah. Oh, sure. Got no backstop at the moment. No backstop on those at the minute. Need to look at the ones on the right. No, still no backstop. Little buck at the back as well, quite interesting. They've just got absolutely no idea what's gone on. That buck coming out there. Yeah, the one coming to the right. If she stops. You wanna? Turn. Again, she wasn't going to drop on the spot. There you go. She's over and down. But she was a little bit hyped up she'd got the adrenaline in her. They weren't quite sure what was going on. So obviously that one didn't drop to the spot like the first one did, because the first one was completely unaware. But again,
nothing to do with shot placement. That's purely down.
That's purely down to her being absolutely revved up because of the first one had gone. She was absolutely on her toes. So the adrenaline had spiked. So she was just going through. I mean, she didn't go far. She went 15 yards and she was down. Sometimes after the first shot they will head off, but what I try to tend to do is, rather than chip away and always disturb them so they're always getting shot at, is just try and come down on a less frequent basis, and then if you can take 2 or 3 out of the herd rather than keep spooking them. That way when a shot does go off, very often you do get the chance of another one, and they're not getting pressured all the time, not getting pushed off the ground.
Roy and Charlie collect the 2 does, and Roy carries out a suspended gralloch in the field.
So the first doe that we shot was a yearling, and then this one's a mature doe. So you can see on this one we have got, again, just where the ground is so wet here, or has been so wet this year, you can just start to see the hooves starting to turn up. So you just got the start of Aladdin's slippers. I mean, that's not bad, it's not going to affect her at that stage. But you can start to see, and again there, you can start to see just where the ground is so wet, the hooves are really starting to grow out. So you're getting Aladdin slippers there, just where it's not wearing it away. Even on that yearling, they're a little bit longer than you would expect.
So that's just soft ground?
It's just soft, wet ground where they've just been traipsing around, and where the ground is so soft this time of year, and where we've had so much rain, they're just not wearing down. But no, it's just, as I say, just an interesting point. It can get crippling for them, because they can grow completely round, and obviously it can cause lameness.
Looking at the rib cages and the heart and lungs, both shots are good. What's interesting is that the second shot does more internal damage than the first, but the second doe is the one that ran.
So there's where the shot has gone through, top of the heart. So we've severed everything going in and out of the top of the heart there, and we've taken the majority of the interception with the lungs there as well. So absolutely perfect shot placement. Hopefully we'll see exactly the same on the yearling, but obviously the yearling didn't go anywhere, where she hadn't been revved up from the shot beforehand as the mature doe had been. Actually, looking at that was slightly higher, so still through the lungs, at the top of the heart, massive disruption all the way through. There you go, at the top of the heart there, and just took everything out. So we didn't quite even get as much damage on the shot as that round went through, but still she dropped on the spot.
So to help manage and shoot deer in an efficient way, hit the stealth button and keep your deer calm.
One on the right.
Thank you, Roy, looking more and more like the late David Bellamy every day. Keep that fungus growing. Now from stalking in the southeast of England to the wider world of hunting and shooting on YouTube, it is Hunting YouTube. This is Hunting YouTube, which aims to show the best hunting and shooting videos that YouTube has to offer. Want to run your own driven wild boar hunt? The YouTube channel Boring Australia, that's boring with an A like wild boar, is driving them to guns with drones. Clever, though possibly ethically suspect, thanks to James Marchington for sending it to me. A shout out for the English Shooting channel from Patrick Andrea, which makes good commentary films about UK firearms law and other subjects. In this film, they're on a pheasant day on St Clair's Estate in Hampshire in the south of England. Here's a pretty film about driven grouse shooting. It's from last summer, but somehow I missed it. Country clothing shop Ardmore put it out as a promo for Bransdale Moor in North Yorkshire. Tommy from Rural Pest Control Whitwell sends me this film, a ferreting outing on a new permission, 14 rabbits caught. Another ferreting Thomas, this one from GT Pest Control, sends me this film made on the edge of the moor with Ryan Wilby and star of the show Molly. Gary Moore sends me a film about bow hunting whitetail in Finland from Kippenar Hunting. It should get American hearts racing even though it's in Finnish. And remember, the whitetail is first cousin to our own roe deer. There are dog breeds in danger of extinction. One of them is the Swiss Hound shown at work here. They make a wonderful sound. It's made by my old friend Mario Toys from Paloma Hunting, and thanks to viewer Fabian Centrigan for sending it in. And finally, thanks to Cal Hepburn for this film about sharpshooters and snipers in the First World War. It's an American and shows how hunting skills helped both sides. That's it for this week. I've put all these films into a playlist for you. Click on the I symbol top right or check this film's description. If you have a YouTube film you would like us to pop into the weekly top 8, email me the link, charlie@fieldsportschannel.tv. Well, that is it for this week. If you haven't done so already, please pop over to our website. There is a link in the description below. You can click to like us there on Facebook and on Instagram. You can follow us on Twitter. You can subscribe to us on YouTube, and you can pop your email address into our register page, and we'll contact you about the show. Fieldsports Britain is at 7 PM UK time every Wednesday. Plus, you can back us. You can back us on YouTube memberships, you can back us on Patreon, and you can even buy shares. Links in the description below. I'll see you next week. Good hunting, good shooting, good fishing, and before I say goodbye, here are some images that our commercials director James Westbrook has shot as he tramps the halls of the biggest gun show on earth, the SHOT Show in Las Vegas. Here they are. Goodbye.